My name is Daniel. I'm 24 years old. And 2 months ago, my brother called me with 5 words that changed everything. Mom died. I inherited it all. No simpathy, no pause, no softness in his voice. Just that. And then he added, almost casually, you get nothing. At that moment, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I smiled. Because what my brother didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment for years. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why losing everything on paper was exactly how I finally won. But to understand how we got here, you need to know who my brother really is, who my mother really was, and what happened in our house long before her death. Because this isn't just a story about inheritance. It's about betrayal, about a family built on control, about a secret I carried alone, and a reaction my brother never saw coming. So let me start from the beginning. I grew up in a small town. Nothing special. Quiet streets. Neighbors who knew too much about each other's lives. From the outside, our family looked perfect. My mom, Linda, warm smile. Church every Sunday. Homemade pies. Everyone called her an angel. My dad died when I was 8. Accident. One moment he was driving home. Next moment he was gone. After that, it was just mom, my older brother Eric, and me. Eric was 5 years older. When dad died, Eric changed. He stopped being my big brother and started becoming something else. He became mom's favorite. And I don't mean in a normal way. I mean a way that slowly pushed me out of my own family. At first, it was small things. If Eric broke something, it was an accident. If I broke something, I was careless. If Eric got a B, mom praised him for trying. If I got an A-, mom asked why it wasn't an A. If Eric wanted new shoes, mom found the money. If I needed something, I was told to be grateful for what you have. I learned early. In our house, love had conditions. And Eric knew exactly how to use that. By the time I was a teenager, the roles were set. Eric was the golden child. I was the background character. He was loud, confident, always in control. I was quiet, observant, invisible when it benefited them. But being invisible has advantages. People forget you're listening. They forget you're noticing everything. And I noticed things, like how mom let Eric handle her finances to help her, how he started signing documents for her, how he convinced her to put the house in a trust with him as the manager, how he always made sure I wasn't in the room when important conversations happened. At 17, I once asked mom, what happens to the house when you're gone? She laughed nervously. Oh, sweetheart, that's all taken care of. Eric handles it. Don't worry your head with adult things. That was the first time a cold thought entered my mind. What if there's nothing left for me? When I turned 18, I moved out for college. Not because they encouraged me, but because staying meant slowly disappearing. I worked 2 jobs, paid my own rent, ate cheap noodles for months. Meanwhile, Eric stayed at home, helping mom, driving her car, using her credit card, living rent-free. Whenever I visited, he'd smirk and say, must be nice playing independent adult. And mom would laugh like it was just sibling teasing. But I could feel it. He already saw himself as the owner of everything. The house, the money, her attention, and maybe he saw me as a future problem. Years passed. I graduated, found stable work, built my own quiet life. I called mom every week, visited on holidays, stayed polite, but I always felt like a guest in my childhood home. Then, one winter, mom's health started failing. Eric called me. Don't worry. I'm handling everything. Doctor visits, paperwork, legal stuff. Every time I asked questions, he shut me down. You don't need to stress, mom. I've got it. And mom, she let him. Because that's what she always did. The last time I saw her alive, she held my hand. Her voice was weak. I'm proud of you, Danny. I almost cried. Not because of what she said, but because it felt late. Too late. Eric stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching. Like a guard. Like a warden. 3 weeks later, my phone rang at 6 a.m. Eric's name. I answered. And that's when he said it. Mom died last night. I inherited it all. You get nothing. No greeting. No share grief. No softness. Just victory. And silence on my end. I didn't shout. Didn't argue. I just said, okay. And hung up. Eric thought that meant surrender. He thought I'd fade away like I always had. But what he didn't know was that 5 years earlier, I had quietly started preparing for the day someone tried to erase me from my own family. And in the next part, I'll tell you exactly what I did in secret and why Eric's triumph call was the biggest mistake of his life. Eric thought I had accepted my place. The forgotten son, the one who moved away, the one who didn't matter. But the truth is, I started preparing long before Mom died. And it began the day I accidentally heard a conversation I was never supposed to hear. 5 years earlier, I was visiting for Thanksgiving. Eric didn't know I'd come a day early. I let myself in with my old key. The house smelled like cinnamon and roasted turkey. I was about to call out when I heard my name, so I stopped. Mom's voice came from the kitchen. Eric's voice beside her. "I'm just saying," Eric said, "we need to make sure everything is clean. Simple. When the time comes." Mom sighed. "Daniel will understand." Eric laughed. A short, sharp laugh. "Mom, he moved away. He doesn't help. He doesn't pay for anything. Why should he get half of what I built here with you?" There was silence. Then Mom said something that froze my blood. "You're right. You've been here. You've taken care of me. It's only fair." My hands were shaking, not from anger, from clarity. In that moment, I understood something important. They were already planning my future. Without me in the room, I didn't confront them, didn't storm in, didn't make a scene. I quietly left the house, sat in my car, and made a decision. If my brother was rewriting the rules behind closed doors, I would start writing my own. The next week, I booked an appointment with a lawyer. A small office downtown, old wooden desk, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes but a sharp mind. I told her everything. About Dad's death, about Eric managing Mom's finances, about the trust, about my fear of being erased. She listened, then asked one question. "Has your mother ever been pressured into signing anything she didn't understand?" I thought of Mom's nervous laugh, of Eric guiding her hand, of documents I was never allowed to see. "I don't know," I said, "but I wouldn't be surprised." The lawyer leaned back. "Then you need to start documenting everything. Messages, emails, witnesses, and if possible, get copies of any legal documents tied to your mother's estate." I nodded, and from that day on, I became very quiet, very polite, very invisible, and very watchful. Over the next years, I did 3 things. First, I saved every message Eric ever sent me, every arrogant comment, every financial brag, every time he admitted controlling Mom's affairs. Second, I built my own financial safety net, savings, investments, emergency fund, so no matter what happened, I wouldn't be desperate. And third, I stayed close enough to the family to be present, but distant enough to never look threatening. I became the nice younger brother, the one who didn't cause problems, the one who accepted crumbs. Eric never saw me as danger. That was his mistake. 2 years before Mom died, I got a call from her. Her voice sounded small. "Danny, Eric says we need to sign new papers. Something about taxes. Can you come over tomorrow?" I felt my heart pounding. This was it. I told her I'd be there. When I arrived, Eric was already sitting at the table. A stack of documents. A pen in Mom's hand. He smiled at me. Perfect timing. "We're just updating some boring legal stuff." The lawyer on the phone speaker was speaking fast. Too fast. Mom's eyes were tired. Confused. I stepped forward. "Mom," I said gently, "can we slow down? What exactly are these papers?" Eric's smile twitched. "Daniel, don't make this dramatic." But Mom hesitated, and that hesitation was all I needed. "Mom," I said, "you don't have to sign anything today. We can review this with an independent lawyer first." Eric's voice hardened. "That's unnecessary." Mom looked between us, and for the first time in years, she saw something she hadn't noticed before. Not 2 sons arguing, but one son pushing, and one son protecting. She put the pen down. "I want to wait," she said quietly. Eric's face went blank, dangerously blank. That night, he cornered me in the hallway. "You think you're smart?" he whispered. "You think you can step in now after doing nothing for years?" I looked him in the eye. "I think Mom deserves to understand what she signs." He leaned closer. "You're not getting anything. You understand me?" "Nothing." I just smiled politely. "We'll see." After that day, things changed. Eric became colder, sharper, more careful. Mom became quieter, more withdrawn, and I knew time was running out. Then came a call. Mom died. I inherited it all. You get nothing. Eric thought the game was over, that he had already won, that the years of manipulation, paperwork, whispered conversations had finally paid off. He thought my calm reaction meant defeat. He didn't know that the moment Mom died, a different plan quietly activated. A plan involving documents Eric never knew existed. A lawyer already waiting. And one final truth about my mother that would turn everything upside down. The funeral was small, quiet, almost cold. Eric organized everything. He chose the flowers, the music, the seating. I sat in the second row, not beside him, not beside the casket, just close enough to watch. Eric cried, loudly, dramatically, shaking hands, accepting hugs, performing grief like a man accepting applause. I didn't cry, not because I didn't love my mother, but because grief had already visited me years ago, when I realized I had never truly belonged in that house. After the service, people left. Cars disappeared down the quiet street, and Eric walked straight to the house, not to mourn, to take inventory. I followed, not because I wanted anything, but because I knew something was waiting for me there. Mom had always kept one drawer in her bedroom locked. When we were kids, she called it her memory drawer. Photos, letters, old jewelry, things that mattered. Eric never bothered with sentimentality. He went straight to the office, to the files, to the documents, to the safe. So I walked upstairs, to Mom's room. The drawer was locked, but I remembered something. When I was 12, Mom had once sent me to grab her passport from that drawer, and she'd given me the key. I'd never forgotten where she hid it afterward. Behind the loose tile in the bathroom. Third row, back left corner. I lifted the tile, and there it was, the tiny gold key. My hand shook as I unlocked the drawer. Inside were old photos, birthday cards, a small velvet box, and an envelope. On the front, written in Mom's handwriting, Daniel, if you're reading this, I am gone. I am sorry. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. Danny, if you're reading this, I didn't have the courage to tell you these things while I was alive. I was weak. I let your brother take control of too much. I convinced myself it was easier that way. But I see now what I did to you. In this drawer, you will find a copy of my original will from before Eric changed it. I never destroyed it. I couldn't. I also included the contact information of the lawyer who helped me create it. I don't know what Eric told you. I don't know what he made me sign later. But I wanted to have this, because you deserve to know the truth. I love you. I'm sorry. Mom. My vision blurred. Not from rage. From something sharper. Vindication. And heartbreak. At the bottom of the drawer was a folded document. An official copy of a will. Dated 8 years earlier. Before Eric had taken control. In it, the house was to be split equally. Savings split equally. Everything fair. Normal. Human. I took photos of everything. The letter, the will, the envelope, the drawer. Then I locked it back, put the key exactly where it was, and walked downstairs. Eric was in the office. Stacks of folders on the desk. Laptop open. Phone to his ear. He was already calling banks, insurance companies, utility services, claiming his prize. He saw me in the doorway. His smile was bright, victorious. So he said, I'll handle the estate. I'll send you some personal items later. I looked at him calmly. Actually, I said, we should talk. He raised an eyebrow. About what? I took out my phone, opened a photo of Mom's letter, and held it up. Eric's smile disappeared. For the first time in my life, my brother looked afraid, just for a moment. Then his expression hardened again. That letter means nothing, he said. The latest will is valid. I have it. Signed. Notarized. Legal. I nodded. You might be right, I said. Then I added, but I think a judge will want to know why Mom kept the original, why she hid it, and why she wrote that letter. Eric stepped closer. You're not smart enough to fight me, he hissed. I smiled. Already hired a lawyer. His eyes widened, just slightly, but enough. That night, I stayed in a hotel, not the house, because I knew what was coming next. Phone calls, threats, pressure, and sure enough, at 11:43 p.m., Eric called. I didn't answer. He texted, you will lose. Walk away now. I might give you something if you behave. I saved the message. Another piece of evidence. Another brick in the wall he didn't know I was building. The next morning, I met my lawyer. I showed her everything. The hidden will, the letter, the text messages, the history. She leaned back in her chair and smiled. "Oh," she said quietly, "this is going to be interesting." But what neither of us expected was that Eric had one final move. A move so cruel, so personal, that would force me to make the hardest decision of my life. I thought the worst part would be the legal battle. Courtrooms, documents, lawyers arguing over signatures and dates. I was wrong. The worst part was what Eric was willing to do outside the courtroom. Because when people who built their power on control feel it slipping away, they don't just fight with papers. They fight dirty. 2 days after the funeral, I returned to the house. Not to stay, just to collect a few childhood belongings. A box of old books, a framed photo of Dad, some clothes Mom had saved. Eric let me in, but the house felt different now. Not like a home, like enemy territory. As I packed, I heard him downstairs on the phone. His voice was low, sharp. "I need you to testify that she was fully aware. That Daniel never visited. That Eric was the only caretaker." A pause. Then, "Yes, I can compensate you." My blood ran cold. He was already building witnesses. I went downstairs quietly. Eric turned when he saw me. Smiled, too casually. "You done packing?" I nodded. As I walked past him, he leaned in. "You know," he said softly, "people like you don't win these fights. Judges believe the son who stayed, not the one who ran away." I stopped, looked at him. "I didn't run away," I said. "I survived you." His eyes flashed, but he said nothing. Not yet. That night, I got a call from my lawyer. Her voice was serious. "Daniel, Eric filed an emergency motion. He's claiming your mother wasn't mentally stable in her final years. He's saying the hidden will and letter might be the result of confusion or coercion." I felt dizzy. "He's saying I manipulated her?" I asked. "Yes," she said, "and he submitted a doctor's note suggesting early cognitive decline." I sat down. Mom had been forgetful sometimes, confused occasionally. Eric had been in every appointment, every conversation, every form. He had shaped the narrative, and now he was using it as a weapon. For the first time, doubt crept in. What if the judge believed him? What if the hidden will was dismissed? What if all my preparation still ended with me walking away with nothing? Not just money, but proof that I mattered. Then came a knock. My hotel room door. 8:17 p.m. 2 police officers. My stomach dropped. "Daniel Carter?" one asked. "Yes. We have a complaint. Your brother reports that items are missing from your mother's house. He says you took property that doesn't belong to you." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then I understood. He was trying to paint me as a thief, to destroy my credibility before court. Luckily, I had prepared. I calmly handed them a printed list. Photos, timestamps, receipts for storage. "I took only personal belongings," I said, "and documented everything before leaving the house." The officers looked through it. One nodded. "This is thorough," he said. "We'll note it in our report." They left, but the message was clear. Eric was willing to burn everything down, if it meant I lost. I sat on the bed that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was worth it. Not the money, not the house, but the war, the ugliness, the realization that my own brother would rather destroy me than share anything. I thought of Mom's letter. I was weak. Maybe I understood her now more than ever. Maybe walking away would be peace. Maybe winning would cost too much. Then my phone buzzed. A new email from an unknown address. Subject line: "I think you deserve to know the truth." Inside was a single sentence: "Your brother is lying about the doctor's note." Attached was a scanned document, a medical report, with a signature at the bottom, and a note in handwriting I recognized. Mom's. I stared at the email. The subject line burned in my mind. "Your brother is lying about the doctor's note." I opened the attachment. It was a copy of Mom's latest medical exam. Signed, dated, official, and it said something Eric had never expected anyone to see. Mom was perfectly lucid, able to make decisions, fully aware of everything she signed. And, most importantly, she had explicitly refused to change her will in Eric's favor. Somehow, Eric had convinced a family friend doctor to falsify paperwork, to claim cognitive decline, to erase Mom's clarity. And now, with this proof, he could be exposed. I leaned back in my chair, heart racing. This wasn't just a legal advantage. This was a moral victory, a sign that Mom's voice, her truth, was still with me. But there was more. The email contained a message from the sender. Daniel, I've been watching everything. Your brother thought he could outsmart all of us. He was wrong. Meet me tomorrow. We need to talk. No name, no number, no indication of who it was. Only a time and a place. The next morning, I went. A small coffee shop on the edge of town. Quiet, dim, perfect for secrets. Inside, an older woman waved me over. Daniel, she said, Mom spoke about you often. My name is Margaret. I'm a family friend, and I've been trying to make sure Eric never takes what isn't his. I swallowed. What exactly do you know? Margaret slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents, photos, and messages. Evidence of Eric's manipulation spanning over a decade. Bank statements. Letters falsified with Mom's signature. Phone recordings where Eric coached Mom on what to say. She looked me in the eye. He's been lying since Dad died, and he's counting on the fact that no one outside the family would ever question him. I felt a chill. This could ruin him. Margaret nodded, and it will, if used correctly. For the next 2 days, I and my lawyer went through every piece of evidence. Every note, every email, every hidden document. We built a timeline, a narrative that could not be disputed. It showed that Eric had been systematically rewriting Mom's intentions. And most importantly, it proved that she had wanted me to inherit just as much as he did. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice, about honoring Mom, about proving that Eric's arrogance had limits. Then came a call from Eric. His tone was different this time. Nervous, controlled, but cracking at the edges. Daniel, I know you've been talking to lawyers, and I know you found something. You think you can stop me? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I said, Eric, I've read Mom's letters. I've seen the hidden will. I have proof you falsified documents. And I know what the doctors really said. Silence. Then, you have no idea what you're dealing with. I smiled. Actually, I think I do. And I think you might finally realize that you underestimated me. Over the next week, legal proceedings began. Eric tried every trick he knew. Pressure, intimidation, false witnesses, claims that the evidence was forged. But Margaret had already secured independent verification. The doctor was willing to testify. The lawyer had everything in order. And Eric, for the first time in his life, looked cornered. But here's the part nobody expected. Eric didn't just fight for the inheritance. He started fighting personally. He called mutual friends, spread rumors, trashed my reputation online, tried to turn Mom's friends and neighbors against me. I expected it, and I was ready, because one thing Eric had never understood. I didn't need anyone to believe me. I only needed truth, and the law, and Mom's words. The night before the final court date, I sat alone in my apartment, looking at Mom's letter, the original will, the photos of the hidden drawer. I thought about everything Eric had taken from me over the years. My childhood, my confidence, my family's trust. And I smiled, because tomorrow, for the first time, he would face justice, and I would finally be free. The courtroom was cold and quiet. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, but it did nothing to warm the tension in the room. Eric sat at the plaintiff's table, looking confident, arrogant, like he always did. I sat beside my lawyer, calm, collected, carrying the weight of years of preparation and Mom's truth. The judge entered. All chatter stopped. Everyone rose, then sat again. The trial began. Eric's lawyer spoke first. He painted a picture of the dutiful son caring for a sick mother. He claimed I had been absent, irresponsible, unworthy. But when my lawyer stood, she didn't argue. She showed. She presented Mom's hidden will. Her letter, the email from Margaret, the original medical reports proving Mom was lucid, photos of the hidden drawer, every manipulated document Eric had tried to use. And slowly, piece by piece, the truth unfolded before the judge. Eric tried to interject. Objection, he shouted. Forgery, fraud, coercion. But every claim was met with evidence. Doctor's notes, witnesses, Margaret's testimony, everything pointing to one undeniable fact. Mom's original intentions had been clear all along. For the first time, Eric looked unsure. Sweat formed on his brow. His jaw tightened. He leaned back in his chair, eyes darting. The confident act was cracking. I stayed calm. I didn't gloat. I only listened, because I knew the truth would speak louder than any argument. By the time the judge called for a recess, murmurs filled the courtroom. People were stunned. The air was thick with tension. And Eric, well, he didn't leave his chair. He just stared at the table, silent, defeated, though he didn't want to admit it. When the hearing resumed, the judge's voice was firm. I have reviewed all documents, testimony, and evidence. It is clear that the original will reflect the true intentions of the decedent. The current claims of incapacity and manipulation are unsupported by credible evidence. Therefore, the estate shall be divided equally between the two siblings. A hush fell over the courtroom. Eric froze. His hand shook slightly. Then, slowly, his face twisted into anger. Not just disappointment. Pureraje. He turned to me, eyes blazing, and whispered under his breath, You got lucky. I smiled politely, not because I was gloating, but because the word lucky was absurd. Years of preparation, careful planning, observation, all of it. Nothing about this was luck. After the court adjourned, I walked out. Margaret followed, smiling. Your mother would be proud, she said softly. I nodded, and for the first time in years, I felt it. Peace, closure, the validation of being seen, not as the background son, but as a son who mattered. Eric never apologized. He never admitted defeat. But over the next few weeks, his attempts to manipulate, threaten, and intimidate quietly faded. He was forced to accept the outcome, and slowly, reluctantly, he disappeared into his own world, angry but powerless. I inherited more than just a portion of the estate. I inherited truth, justice, the knowledge that Mom's voice, her wishes, finally mattered. And I realized something crucial. Sometimes, victory isn't just about taking what you deserve. It's about proving that those who tried to erase you cannot. Months later, I returned to Mom's house. The memories were heavy, but the air felt lighter now. I opened the drawer one last time, pulled out Mom's letter, and whispered, Thank you, Mom. I finally understand. I left the house, knowing that Eric's shadow no longer had power over me. For the first time, truly, I was free. And that's the story of betrayal, of patience, of hidden truths, of a family torn apart by greed, but ultimately held together by the one thing no one could manipulate: love and integrity.